Well, welcome back. Today is Friday, March 6th, 2020, and we only have 4 days left of this legislative session. So let's jump right into it. Today was kind of the day of don't fall asleep. So earlier in the day, it was almost made out like, is this going to be a busy day or not? What's going to happen? The morning session was actually let out 30 minutes early, and almost no bills had been heard. But then this evening at 4 o'clock, things went hot and heavy, and in 2 hours, it was on. So let's jump into it and see where we go from here. Like I mentioned in the title, have you ever heard legislators say that Utah is one of the only states with a AAA credit rating? And they'll often use this almost as an excuse or as an option to say, don't even try to question us. Don't talk about the state debt. Don't talk about what we're doing with your money and how we're appropriating it. We are A-OK because we have a AAA state rating. Well, let's look into that for a moment and see, are we one of the only ones? Well, if you think that 15 of the 50 states is the only one, then you'd be right. But there are 15 states, 14 other than the state of Utah, that do have a AAA rating. So what is this AAA rating? It's basically just a bond rating so that would-be investors that will come in and buy up this state debt will do so knowing that their bond is going to get paid back. So investors will literally line up saying, I would love to own a chunk of the state of Utah's debt. The AA plus is also awarded to 14 states, and a AA rating is given to 13 states. So almost 3/4 or more, about 85% of the states in the United States have a AA rating or better. So what is a AA and how is that different than a AAA? Well, the definition is a AA, an obligor rated, has a very strong capacity to meet its financial commitments. It differs from the highest rated obligors only to a small degree. So I don't know if I was a legislator, if that would be something I would really throw out there as something to jump behind. Number one, Utah is not the only AAA rated. And number two, being a AA or AA plus rating, according to the research I've been able to locate, gives, again, would-be investors to buy up these bonds and buy up the debts of a state great confidence. So with that being the case, the state of Utah's debt is actually at $7.479 billion. And these are 2015 numbers. It's actually inflated to close to or exceeding $8 billion as of 2020. So you can knock yourself out with some fun. I've got a link down below that can take you to the treasurer's office and go crazy with this thing. It will get you access to every report, every audit, not the stuff that the legislation puts together where they're thinking and predicting. No. This is tying out every penny. These are great reports. I don't know how many of us have read them. I found them for us, so go ahead and jump through it. I also wanted to look at this to say, so we're spending $20 billion. Where is that going? Most of us think, just cut it, get rid of it. This is insane. Well, let's look at it. So we have 25.3% of our total budget is going towards K through 12 education. We then have 19% of our budget going to Medicaid. We have 12.7% going towards higher education and 8.9% going to transportation. That is 65.9%. Call it 66, or 2/3 of our entire budget going towards 4 areas of our budget. And 30.7 goes to this really fun thing called other, and then 5% that's out there. So we could certainly make some cuts. And again, look at the treasurer link down below. So yesterday I mentioned that there was a bill that we wanted to follow, and this was HB 390, amendments to asset forfeiture. It was held this morning, which means that as the debate was ensuing, it got to a point within the discussion where they didn't have time to really properly argue it and understand it to its fullest, so that they did hold it. It will come back next week. So like I mentioned at the start of this, we are 34 bills today. 7 of them were circled, so maybe closer to 27. 12 of those were opposed. 7 of them with over 10 votes. And here's the crazy thing that happened today. Hasn't happened yet. 3 bills failed. So let's go through them one at a time. We had HB 252. Failed. This was health insurance for athletic trainer services. What this was is the legislators actually were taking it upon themselves to force healthcare providers to allow an athletic trainer to qualify for direct billing of their services. Now, I employ a number of athletic trainers. These guys are very qualified. They all have master's degrees, as was made responsible or accountable in 2006 when athletic trainers were actually first licensed in our state. SB 67 came back again. This was the disposition of fetal remains. It was debated mostly because we had 3 people from the House, 3 people from the Senate get together in a special committee to consider some of the changes to the legislation that occurred when the bill was moving back and forth between the Senate and the House. They came forward with an amendment that was going to be changed so that the woman now, she didn't have to say anything. She can just leave, and by default, the hospital would take over the necessity for the disposition of those fetal remains within 72 hours. It passed 49-20. HB 189, jury duty amendments. This one failed. What this was is that if you are 72 years or older, you could opt out of jury duty. Again, jury duty should be something that all of us consider a great opportunity, an opportunity for us to be part of the legal process. We spoke about that a little bit ago with the whole 10th Amendment and what does it mean and how is it that we really are engaged in our society. So that one failed. We had HJR 20. This was a joint resolution encouraging local health departments to set licensing rules. Interesting thing here, it also failed. It was a joint resolution. Again, remember, resolution does not carry the same weight as a bill. And this was just encouraging that local health organizations have limited opportunity to control where tobacco is sold. There was no discussion on the bill. This thing was only, mentioned for all of maybe 2-3 minutes. It was voted on and killed, 29-42. HB 431, Energy Rebate Program Amendments. This one had 23 people in opposition. It made it, and this was going to promote energy conservation. And how was it going to do that? Well, it was going to make sure that that heat pump that comes through with new home construction would continue to be available for builders to receive the credit rebate. The discussion turned a little bit interesting for me because every 6 years the legislation sets new standards for what these rebates are going to do and some of the new things in home building and where is it that the most energy efficient things will be. But it did pass. HB 357, this one went crazy. This was heard for close to an hour. The Speaker of the House himself, Brad Wilson, came down off the stage so that he could even testify, offering up this very interesting story about his kids. Well, it passed. Only 10 people opposed it. What is this thing? Well, public education funding stabilization. Again, what they're looking for, and they want to continue to kind of scare us about this volatile income taxes that we saw from 2008 to 2010. And of course, they will be coming back. Well, last I checked, we have an enormous surplus in the education fund, right now very close to $1 billion. Well, this particular bill said that with the revenue growth and the weighted pupil unit, it was going to provide a floor for the funding, not a ceiling. It was also going to create ongoing public ed accounts, and they wanted to make sure that these accounts were funded for a full 2 years. 2 years. So that in the event that income taxes slid a little bit, they'd have this enormous amount of money set aside to make sure public education does not fail. The quote of the day up there was this one. We tried it our way, referring to SB 2001 and that whole debacle, and we should have done it this way from the start and let the voters decide. So this would require a constitutional amendment. This would require the governor signing off on it, and then it will go on the ballot in November, if it makes it that far, and we will get to vote on it. The last one was HB 232, and this was school mental health funding amendments. It passed 44-28, and this was that parental consent is needed to opt in to this particular mental health screening, of your kids. So if you're sending your children to public school, you would have to opt in for this particular mental health screening of your child. Are they already doing this? Yes, but across the state, everybody's doing it very different. To me, different is good because different means local. We had 12 new bills that got numbered today. One of those, and I know we touched on a Todd Weiler, he went 2 for 2. We highlighted one of his bills yesterday. We're highlighting another one today. This is seizure-related student accommodations amendment. Now, full disclosure on this, I have a son who is currently battling what is called absonic seizures, where he will just kind of blank out for 10 to 15, 20 seconds at a time, and he can have multiple events throughout the day. Doesn't affect him cognitively, but certainly in a learning environment, it's something that you do need to be aware about. But let's think about principles. The principle of equal rights and equal protection under the law. Is the legislation's job really to legislate that this should create new requirements? It's going to create action plans. It's going to let school employees volunteer for this. The Department of Health is getting involved. No, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the proper role of government. Go back to the debt that this state is in. Go back to the programs. Now, this one jerks at our hearts. It jerks at my heart. But it's one that we need to say no to and allow local institutions and especially parents to be empowered and not engaging all of these other just organizations and entities that are going to suck financial means in order to deliver something that right now is already happening on a local level. Well, that gets us through another week. We've, again, 4 days left, and we'll check in with you all on Monday. Thank you.